When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube. So, we are back on the Grease Goblins channel, and we are going to be doing the third episode of the What If series I've been doing. I've been doing about one every week. I think I'm going to continue that because I don't want to run through these topics like really quickly and then have nothing left to do on the series, and it's just like a month-long series. I kind of want this to be like a staple, and we'll see. So if you guys are recommending a What If, I might not get to it right away because I've gotten like 4 requests on things to do off of like the last 2 videos, so we're just getting to the third one that was recommended, which I think is a really interesting one. I hope you guys too do as well. I said that really weird, but it's okay. But before we get into this video, like, subscribe, comment for more of this type of content. And also, this was recommended by the comments, like I said before, so I'll put that up on the screen right now. And let's get into it. So, this what if situation, or scenario, is whatever you believe happened at the Tower of Joy. I know there's a ton of, like, theories and stuff. All I'm going to say is, Ned dies. So, Ned and his whole party dies. What happens? So I'm going to go with what I believe happens. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this theory depending on what you think actually happened. I'm just going to go with the normal Rhaegar and Lyanna, got together. And Lyanna had Jon. And yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. This scenario changes if you have a different belief of what happened there. But let's say Sir Arthur Dayne, the rest of the Kingsguard are left. You then have baby Jon. Lyanna dies. What happens in this scenario? So there's a couple of things I want to hit on right away, because it changes the story a ton, because you have to remember that the way Game of Thrones really works, Ned Stark is really the key to all of it. He gets the Starks involved with this conflict. The revealing of, the incest thing going on right now is really Ned basically putting that out there. Other people had figured it out, but nobody had put it out yet and had evidence. So with that, being said, no Stark is ever going to come to King's Landing. The only reason Ned would have gone to King's Landing is because he was good friends with Robert. Now with Ned dead, we have another interesting scenario. We have Benjen, who would never have gone to the Wall. He would have actually become the Lord of Winterfell. He would have he wouldn't have gone to the Wall because he wouldn't have been the youngest brother who didn't really inherit anything. He would now become the Lord of Winterfell. Now, what I think is really interesting is at this point, Catelyn is already pregnant with Robb and had Robb. So it's really interesting. Does Benjen just become kind of the Lord until Robb comes of age? Or does what I think could happen, which I think would be really funny, it'd be really unfortunate for Cat, but Catelyn goes from having the top Stark, so you had Brandon Stark, the eldest, to Ned, and now Benjen. Because you have to think, the Riverlands still want Catelyn to be married to a Northern Lord. It's like Marjorie in the current story where the Tyrells want her to be queen, and she's been married off, so many different times now. That's kind of what I see is going to happen with Catelyn, and I think that whole plot changes a lot. But I kind of, skipped over to what happened when Ned dies and stuff like that in the North and all that. Let's talk about what happens with baby Jon. So baby Jon would be interesting because I think there's a few scenarios you could do with this one. I think you could kind of what we see in the Ned or when people still think that Sir Arthur Dayne's still alive, they believe like basically him and his whole party, went north more or less, and they went like over the Wall. I think that is a good possibility as to what would happen here is that they would try to keep Jon alive, but where would you drop him off at? Is he going to become a wildling, which could definitely happen, or is he going to be, with the Danes, maybe, Arthur Dayne just gives it to Ashara, and, we have a whole plot going there, and they just keep Jon under wraps for a while, letting in the Dornish know as well. But I'm not sure. I mean, it's interesting because I don't think the Dornish would even want to foster this child because Rhaegar did, pretty much screw over Elia, left her. So I don't think the Dornish would be too keen on looking over this baby. So I think the baby would probably either go to Ashara Dane and the Dane house in general, because if this baby does come out and have Valyrian features, which Jon really doesn't, he has a lot more of the Starkish features. If anything, they could always pass this off as, the Ned and Ashara theory as well. You could just say that this is Ned, getting Ashara pregnant and then they had this child. And yeah, you could always go with that story. But I think Jon, for a while, will not be a main part of this what if. Because this what if is very hard to predict because Ned is such an integral part of it. Let's go back to basically Benjen. So Benjen now is controlling the north. I think he has Catelyn as his wife. Robb is very interesting. I think Benjen would just, treat Robb as his own and would probably put him, as, I guess, the heir to, House Stark and stuff like that. But I think these two would have a very I don't know about unhappy, but I think it would be something where it was like with Ned and Catelyn, where they'd have to learn to love each other, because Catelyn, you've gone from so many different Starks at this point that I feel like there's no way she's gonna be like happy to be with them. It's gonna be something that's gonna have to be either they're gonna tolerate each other or they're gonna learn to love each other. But with that being said, it also it majorly impacts the wall, because without Benjen being there, I think the limitations of the Rangers is a lot more of an impact. I feel like they have even less of what they know in the actual story because Benjen's not there. He was a big part of the ranging force there, and I think it's a big loss to the wall. As well as, I think what's even going to be more interesting is if, in this scenario, I don't think Jon ends up on the wall either way. If he's with the Danes, he definitely doesn't go to the wall. I think if they take Jon, if the Dane, Arthur Dane takes him across the wall, he's going to become a wildling, so he's not going to be part of the wall either. So, with this being said, it leads to so many different outcomes. Lord Commander Mormont probably dies because the white that was there, the only reason that he's killed is because of Jon lighting him on fire. So, Lord Commander Mormont probably dead. Who takes over? Probably Alliser Thorne. So, you see the wall, and now you definitely know the wildlings are not going to be able to come across the wall at any point of this story now. Okay? The wildlings are not coming across. The wildlings are going to die. And I see, like, with the north, I'm going to skip to what I think is going to happen in the end eventually, is that I believe personally the whites would win this in this scenario, because you look at how much weaker the wall would be without Benjen going there, as well as eventually Jon going there. I think they'd be so much weaker in general. Now, maybe the kingdoms are more united. So let's take a look at the kingdoms. At this point, let's say Littlefinger's plan, he continues to do what he does. So he kills Jon Arryn, or he has Lysa kill Jon Arryn. That whole situation plays out. Who does Robert name as hand? So I don't know if he was going to actually name Jaime. I know he, taunts it a bunch. I don't think he would have actually done it. I think if he was going to name any of the Lannisters to that position, I think he would just have done Tywin. But maybe in this scenario, he does actually do Stannis or Renly. I know Stannis and Robert don't have the best relationship, but would Robert rather have the Lannisters, who he always complains about being as the hand of the king, or someone like Stannis? I don't know, because the thing is, Stannis also flees as soon as Jon Arryn dies and Robert goes north. So maybe Stannis isn't even there. Maybe Renly becomes hand of the king. You know what? I kind of like that. Let's go. I'm going to say there's really three main candidates for this position. I think it's either going to be Renly, Stannis, or Tywin. Because I don't see Jaime getting it, especially because Cersei, and he doesn't like Cersei, keeps telling him to do it. I think he would go over their heads and just do Tywin. But I think it's more likely he does either Renly or Stannis. And I think with Stannis leaving and not wanting to be in that position, I think Renly would get it. Now, Renly's not stupid. I think eventually he would figure it out. And I think he would look to probably get them removed. And I think he would do it a lot better. As we saw in the main story, Renly is not scared to, take them all prisoner in the middle of the night. And I think he's going to get Robert to basically kill them all. I think all the kings will be united, basically, in this scenario against the Lannisters, because Renly would figure this stuff out. Maybe he gets helped by Littlefinger, maybe he doesn't. Littlefinger's a hard one to always do in these what-ifs, because he has to realize the Lannisters are not going to be in power. There's almost no way that the Lannisters are going to win this, just because of who Renly is as a politically savvy person in this realm or this universe. So I think he probably sides with Renly and actually gives Renly some of this information, trying to get more power and saying maybe, hey, I'll help you along. Maybe if I get to be, you know, Lord of Casterly Rock or something like that. Which I don't know if Renly would do it, but I think Renly would figure it out. I think Robert would take all their heads, all the children's heads. They're all gone. The Lannister house, more or less, would be extinct. There probably would be, you know, some minor Lannisters still alive there, but they wouldn't really be in power. Now, with this said, I think Renly definitely looks to make Marjorie the queen for Robert because the Tyrells have been whispering in his ear the whole time. And I think Marjorie probably gives him some actual legitimate heirs. So I think the line of succession is very much intact in this scenario, and the kingdom is more or less united to a degree, because Dany would eventually come over. Now this is another interesting issue. Ned is not there to tell Robert to not kill Dany and Viserys, basically. But I think in this scenario, Robert would continue to try and kill her. Nobody's there that's going to tell Robert, hey, this is a bad idea. There's nobody there that's going to say that. So I think eventually one of these assassination attempts does inevitably kill Daenerys. So I think Daenerys does die at some point. Now, it might take a while just because, you know, because she does dodge a few assassination attempts because of Jorah and some other things. But I think eventually she would be assassinated. I think it would get to the point where they would see her dragons getting a lot bigger, you know, and all this stuff. And I think they would just hire a faceless men to kill her. It doesn't even matter how much it is. I think eventually Daenerys would die in this scenario. So let's say Daenerys, she's out of the equation. They assassinate her. They get her done with. You know, she's done, right? You then have Fagon, or Aegon, if you think he's legitimate, coming in a little later. Now, the problem with this is, how is he going to win? The kingdoms are mostly going to be united against them. The Tyrell forces are going to be backing the Baratheons. The North should back the Baratheons just based upon loyalty and stuff like that. The Eyrie at this point, I don't really see why they would go for Fagon. The only people that I think could legitimately go for them is the Dornish. Now, the power of the Dornish plus the Golden Company, if they even think it's smart enough to go with Fagon, looking at how the powers are in Westeros, the army still wouldn't be good enough to even closely match the rest of the kingdoms. So I think Doran, being a smart man, I don't think he would even go for this. Again, I think Fagon would be thrown to the sea. So at the very end of this, I think the kingdoms would actually be united. Now, with that being said, Robert, again, does not have a good relationship with Benjen. Not many characters in the story have a good relationship with Benjen, besides the Starks themselves. So would, all of them realize that, hey, these others are coming over to kill us? Should we band together and fight this? Do we believe that Benjen in the North and the Wall? I don't know, because in this situation, it's so difficult. They would definitely, realize it once the North falls, but would it be too late at this point? Because you got to think, the others would have gotten all of the wildling bodies, all of them, because none of them are going to cross because of Alistair Thorne. And Benjen okay, this is another thing. When the wildlings tried to go across the wall, the North definitely would have been there to help them. Benjen would have helped them. It's his job to do that. And all of his fighting forces would have been at the aid of the Wall. And with the amount of forces that the North could conjure up, I definitely think they would have defended pretty well against the Wall. With the extra supplies, the extra men, I don't think the wildlings would have done any different. I think they would have just been repelled, and the others eventually would have gotten them. So the others now come in with an army that's very massive. How would they have gotten across the Wall? Because we don't know this in our time. Like, we're not even sure how the others are going to get across. A lot of people think it's going to be the Horn of Winter, which could be in the possession of Sam right now in Oldstown, which I think is a good scenario. But again, if you look at how things played out, they wouldn't have gone north. So Sam would never have found the horn. And Sam, in this scenario, would probably be dead. Because Jon's not there to protect him. Sam would probably be beaten to death and or killed. There's a lot of things here. So the Horn of Winter is never actually found. So the Wall would never come down in this situation. They can't do something like they did in the show because the dragons, let's say they're not even killed, would just be wandering Essos because Dany's dead. It's hard to predict because they also can't just swim around the wall. So how would this work? I think there's two possible scenarios that make sense here. Is that pretty much the forces of the living just lose. They just lose the northern half past the wall, and the White Walkers and the others or whatever just can't get across the wall. They have no way of doing it because of the magic placed on the wall, and nothing's been done to upset that. The other scenario is somehow with maybe Blood Raven's powers and the Children of the Forest powers, they figure out a way to get across the wall. At this point, I don't think that the rest of the kingdoms of the south would have believed these stories they were being told, because again, look at the story, nobody believes this. I think it would have taken the north falling for the rest of the kingdoms to figure this out. And by that time, I think it would have been too late, because like I said earlier, Benjen doesn't have a good relationship with any of the other real kingdoms. Like, you could say, yeah, maybe Robert, but not really, because Robert had a good relationship with Ned, not really the rest of them. And you might be thinking, okay, what about the Bran stuff? Bran, who knows if we even get a character like Bran, because Bran fell out of the window because he saw, Cersei and Jaime, having a good time on the tower. That would never have happened in this scenario. So even if Bran, a kid like Bran is, made, it wouldn't have, there would be no him falling from a tower, be no him crippled. He would have wanted to be a knight. He wouldn't have, gone across the wall. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a weird scenario, because if the others get across the wall, I think the kingdoms are doomed. But if they can't, I think more or less the kingdoms actually are in a good place. So this is a theory that's very hard to do. Now, the very end of this, we're going to loop back to Jon. So what would they be able to do with Jon? This is what I'm trying to think, is because Arthur Dayne, right, and the Dayne family in general, let's say they still are holding on to Jon. Jon's come out and he has a lot of Ned's features. So let's say the general public just believes that this is just a bastard of Ned, that was, fathered on Ashara. What would have happened there? Because who would support them, right? When they said, oh, this is Rhaegar and Lyanna's son. Nobody's going to support them. Like, the Dornish are not going to support them, right? Why would the Starks back this, right? Because Arthur Dayne would have killed Ned, so the Starks aren't going to have no love for him. This is just a weird, like, Jon is just a weird character in this scenario, because I just don't think his claim would matter. Because I don't think anyone would particularly believe it, and even if they did, right, who is going to back him? I think Robert, as soon as this came out, would just go over there and kill the kid. So, I hate to say it, but I don't think Jon is even a part of the story in this scenario. I don't think he has any type of development that could make it to where he was part of the story, because I think all the Targaryens are going to die in this situation. Jon may be the last one that lives on, basically, just because they keep him hidden. But besides that, I think Daenerys dies. Viserys is going to die the same way. It's really interesting. Ned dying is such a huge and influential part of the story that I don't know, because Littlefinger, I think he would be trying to cause chaos, but I don't know how he'd be able to do it at this point. I mean, if Robert can get even one child on the Tyrells, they're going to be loyal to him forever, right? Or they're at least going to be loyal to the crown. And the Baratheons, knowing this is going to be a legitimate heir, I mean, there's no reason for Stannis or Renly to ever try and take the crown. So they're going to stay loyal. The Starks are going to stay loyal to the Baratheons just because they're the crown lords or whatever. There just doesn't make any sense for me as to how Littlefinger would orchestrate an event to more or less gain himself more power. The only thing I could think of is him helping Renly, and Renly basically whispering in Robert's ear to give him, a lordship or something like that. So, yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's anything I missed. This is such a broad and hard theory to do because it impacts so many different plot lines that it's really hard to do this video, but I really do enjoy making these videos, especially these like fan fiction type of videos. Well, yeah, let me know what you guys want to see next in the comments, and I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.